Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to do a special selection today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Martin, Breach with the track Kollapse, the last song of their discography and a worthy goodbye. Alright, so let's dig into this. We have a 9-minute track ahead of us. I thought Kollapse was a band. I actually thought that was inverted, where the band was Kollapse and the song was Breach. But when I pulled this video up, that's not true. So this is going to be interesting. I thought I had an idea of what this was going to be, and now I have no idea. So let's dig into this and see what Breach is bringing to the table today. Really interesting rhythmic structure. Yeah, you can really hear the 4/4 now, and it showcases the odd starts and stops in the guitars very clearly. So our ideas start on 1, 3, 1, 2. And that asymmetry is what gives it that odd feeling. Yeah, so we got like a dotted quarter idea going on. Groupings of 3 against our groupings of 4. There's a lot of tension in that last section too. Our left guitar was kind of melodic and positive, but there's a lot of tension over on our right. I love that grace note slide concept. It's not a grace note. It's just 2/8 pickup notes. It's interesting because we have to be close to halfway, and I have no idea of where they're going with this. They're really not setting up many ideas at all. very pensive in some instruments, and others not so much. Oh, wow. So that rising bass idea is actually a callback to a rising concept we have at the end of our opening guitar idea. I like the shaker. I like the really harsh panning on these bells. Okay. So this is the... Wow. At first, I couldn't get a read on it. Then I thought that I knew what they were going for, and then you went for something just drastically different. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I have a read on this. I'm gonna start explaining some of the neat ideas that went into this and what they were conceptually doing. But I don't know I'm gonna be able to tie it all back together. So, to start, this was interesting because we started off with just that guitar, right? Really strange rhythm. We had an idea that was 7 beats long, followed by 2 beats. No, it was 6 beats long, followed by a 2-beat idea that led into the next one that was 5 long, that led us into a 3-beat idea that pushed us into the repeat. And that gave us accents on 1, 3, 1, 2. Asymmetrical, difficult to follow. I counted in as usual. I start everything on 4/4. It's a very common time signature, and you can do a lot of creative rhythmic ideas against it. In fact, you've probably heard a lot of really cool rhythmic ideas played against the 4/4 and haven't even noticed it, and you just maybe like, oh, this is, maybe you don't notice it's weird at all. You just move along with the groove that they've put in there, or if it sounds weird rhythmically, you might think, oh, they're using some cool time signature. But 4/4 is everywhere. So that's where I always start, and the idea was 16 beats long. So then I started to break down where phrases began, and that's where we got this interesting accent pattern. Then the drums came in and solidified my thoughts. We had a very basic 4/4 drum beat. And then we added in some bass and another guitar. I think we had another guitar. And we just kind of did this for a long time. We had a couple of variations through that section. I think it took us all the way to like the 3.5 or 4 minute mark before we began to explore the second part of the track. But it was, for the most part, just that concept. We explored some different harmonies. There was a little bit of dissonance when the guitar was by itself, but as we added more and more layers, that dissonance was kind of leaned into thanks to augmenting and building off of that dissonance through other instruments. So it's a piece that is asymmetrical in rhythm on our lead instrument, but symmetrical overall. It is still a 4/4. It's still a 4-bar phrase in 4/4, which is about as standard as you can get. We have a lot of consonant harmony throughout here, with elements of dissonance tossed in every once in a while, balancing both the beautiful elements and the darker ones, or I should say the brighter ones and the darker ones. We have a nice mix between movement. At the beginning of the guitar phrases, we get a bit of movement, and then we usually hold out a note for 5 or 6 beats, as I said earlier. I think it'd be 4 and 5 because we have a beat at the beginning. That brings us into it. So we have this push and pull between moving ideas and elongated static ones. And the bass just kind of keeps moving at all times. It runs counter to what the guitar's doing in a lot of places. And the drums are just completely solid. All of the harmonic ideas that the rest of the instruments are playing with, all the rhythmic ideas that they're playing with, the drums want no part of it. They're just very steady, sitting in the back, keeping time like a metronome. And like I said, we added a couple of other ideas, and they usually augmented something that we have already heard so far. And I had mentioned about this point that I have no idea where they're going with it. And primarily, what I meant by that was we were still in the intro, as far as I was concerned, halfway into this track. It really could have gone anywhere because this could be an intro for any other larger, more cohesive concept. And that's not to say that this isn't a cohesive concept, but it feels loopy. It feels loop based. It's static, right? It's designed to build into something, and whatever it builds into will be hopefully something with momentum or at least direction. This cycles in upon itself over and over and over. There is no breaking point, so there's no way to see where it would go. The chords loop in on themselves, the ideas loop back in upon themselves. It is entirely self referential, and as far as I can tell, it's 4 minutes of spinning your tires in mud. Uh, you're not going anywhere. And so it gave no direction, it gave no pointers, it gave no landmarks. And so halfway through this track, we could have just stayed here. It gave no indication of doing anything else. So it was really fascinating when we broke from that into something that did the same thing. This is a song about two cyclical loops that for all intents and purposes, could cycle back and forth between each other and create an infinite looping song if they wanted to allude to that. They don't point towards anywhere. They have no destination. They have no direction. There's nothing in the music that says it's going to go anywhere other than back to where it is. Our second idea introduces some interesting concepts to play on top of that. We get another rhythmic guitar idea. We get another moving bass idea. We get another drum idea. This one has momentum. This one wants to go somewhere. It is one of the few instruments that I've heard so far that wants to break this loop. Everything else is quite content in being a gear. A single cog in this machine just spins over and over and over like a gear in a watch. And they're all happy with this. And the drummer is like, hey, we're in a cycle. I want to break out of this. And we actually get a lot of really neat ideas rhythmically in the drums. We get some fills that break up the repetition. We have a lot of this bite, this energy, these accented snare hits in repeated fashion. Almost as if trying to make an announcement that, something needs to change. I think they would traditionally have worked very well as ghost notes with how frequently we got them. But instead, they almost feel like a call to action. It almost veers onto the side of military snare drumming or marching snare drumming. They both have similar connections and stuff like that. Um, it's it's fascinating to hear the drums come out like this. And this is when I began to perk up. Like, oh, where are they going with this? And we began to hear shifting ideas. The guitar takes on a new line. This was, I thought, another cycle. But no, the guitar changed what it was doing without having to change the whole idea. So we begin this idea of the slow burn again, but it's not only about adding new layers, sometimes it's about changing what an instrument is doing. It really feels like they want to break out. Where our first section is all about finding ways to augment on what someone else is doing. If someone else is leaning into something rhythmic here, I'll lean into something rhythmic here. If they're trying to be dissonant here, I'll be dissonant here. This second loop is not, and this is where things get fun. This slow burn takes the approach of building a texture, an atmospheric texture through several unique individual concepts. The guitar starts this descending idea. 3 notes, start from a higher one, go down 2, go back up, go down 2, go back up, right? We get this descending idea. The bass comes in and has a 3-bar phrase of just kind of meandering around doing bass things, and then at the end of it we get this really beautiful rising up hopeful line that brings us back into the beginning of this loop. It runs directly counter to this repetitive descending idea that our guitar is doing. Not only is the guitar descending while our bass has an ascension element to it, but the guitar has 3 notes that they play over and over and over and over, while the bass has a much longer phrase that it goes through with various phrases to it. It is just the complete opposite of it. Then we get the drums. We get another guitar in here that starts playing this melody line. It holds notes out, kind of calling back to what we had at the beginning. And it's kind of putting notes in all of the spaces, all the little pockets that don't have sound yet. Where there isn't an attack, this guitar is putting things in there and just kind of creating this nice sound floor by saying, oh, I can fit in here and then I'll hold this note out. And I can fit into this little space and I'll hold a note out. And it's filling in all the little pieces of empty space. And so sometimes we have dissonance and sometimes we have consonance and sometimes they're both going off at the same time because none of the instruments are really too concerned about anyone else. This one is, what do I want to do? I'm going to go through with it. And at the end, we bring in these bells, which are just gorgeous. They're not concerned with filling in space or playing nice or, not stepping on anybody's toes. They say, you know what? I'm playing every half of a beat, and it's just constant eighth notes. And it's not even just that they're panned in a specific area, because each instrument kind of has its place. There's a really nice production and layering that go on with this. The bells say I'm going to be everywhere, and they just ping pong back and forth. Every other note goes from left to right. And they're very sharp and crisp. The rest of the instruments have a warmth to them, and these are just very bright. Now, of course, they're metal bells. We're looking at a glockenspiel, something in a glockenspiel family here. And it just pierces through everything, and they don't care. They're doing their thing. They're loud, they're piercing, they're constant. And then everything just starts to click. This is actually gorgeous. There's a lot of really cool things going on here where everybody's doing their own thing. It's not quite as cohesive as our first loop where everybody was working together to achieve the same vibe, but there is a vibe achieved here, and even if everybody is kind of doing their own thing, it's still making some really beautiful music. And it made me think about the comment. I have no idea if I'm accurate on this or not. If there's been interviews with Breach, let me know in the comment section. Martin had mentioned that this was their swan song, the last song on their last album. I kind of read this as the past, the present, and the future, the entire timeline of the band collapsed down into a single 9-minute frame of time, where our first half is them working together as the band to create beautiful music. The middle section, when we kind of hit a little bit of silence as we transition from one concept to the next, is them right now, having released this album and have no plans to work together on another. There is no output from the band. And after which is all the band members doing whatever they're going to do with their life. Maybe they make more musical projects, maybe they focus in on other interests in their life, other topics. Maybe they go to school for specific things, or they start a family, or whatever interests them. But the thing is, no matter how far apart they get, no matter how individual their goals become, as their goals were unified as a single band to create great music, now they're all individual. What do they want out of life? Their friendship is still going to bring positivity and cohesion to each other's lives. They're still going to be creating beautiful music, even if, or I should say beautiful art, even if that art isn't music. It could just be something as simple as still being in each other's lives. Catching up every few months, having some beers, talking about what you've been doing with your life, and just putting a smile on everyone's face. Now, I don't know what led their band to cease to be. It could be that there's a massive falling out and that this reading of the ending is completely false. But that's kind of how I view this concept of cohesion, the rebuilding into individual beauty. Combined individual, how would you, an individual collectiveness? Wow, that's an interesting phrase. And thinking about it as their final track that they offered to people, the last thing a lot of people are going to hear from them. You get their last album, it's the last track on it, and this is their little message that there's going to be beauty in the world even after we've parted. We might be your favorite band, you might really look forward to our stuff, but there's always going to be great art out there. Those are my thoughts on Breach's Kollapse. Let me know what you thought of this one. Anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I stated or correct me on, you have your own interpretation of it, let me know. Above the comments is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here, has links for everything related to the channel. You can find ways to support the channel, you can find my music, you can find a link to the Discord community server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. That wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow continuing our exploration of First and Last. We're going to be starting a new band as we have finished up with Catatonia today. We're going to be looking at the band Turnstiles. We're going to look at something off their first album tomorrow, and Thursday we'll look at something off their last album. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.